was a motion to come back into and a second, and a vote to come back into open session.
All right, very good. Okay, well, thank you all for your patience and your stick-to-itness to be in here. We probably took a little longer than we anticipated, but we got all our things done. That's the good news. So thank you all for being here. So call this special meeting of the Lake Lord Town Council back into session, and we will pick up and begin with the item number 5, which is the town manager communications. Shannon?
Sure. Just would like to report to the board and the audience that sewer system replacement project certainly is underway, and we have submitted the, Brown Engineering has submitted the ER engineering report to DEQ to basically kick off the project and review with the state. There was a schedule in your packets that let you know that we had agreed to some milestones. The first one had to be massaged just a little bit, but that has been submitted. I think the mayor's been working closely with Brown on the transmittal letter. So, Mr. Mayor, anything?
Yeah, I would just add, and several of you I see out there were at this. We had two workshops on this subject since our last meeting. They were aimed at trying to get at what some of the conceptual design issues were. Our UAB, Utilities Advisory Board, been very active in this process, and they had identified several areas that we needed some clarification, or we thought Brown needed some clarification from us on, so that we were sure the engineering report would reflect sort of where the town thinks we should be on this project. The second of those workshops was a board workshop, and the purpose of it was we identified, I think there were 10 areas of policy decisions that we felt needed to be made so that Brown had the proper direction from us. These are things downstream which are going to be extremely important to the town, and I think we were able to reach at least our consensus, unanimous in every case, as a town council, as to policies that we envision in the future will likely become ordinance changes as the system becomes, gets designed and gets rolled out. There are things like who's going to own these pressure lift stations. This is a big issue. And what customers, beyond just the existing customers, we were going to attempt to serve, and where we go out and in building out the initial phases of the system, where we try to provide opportunities for services for folks that are currently not customers, that it may be by the time the system is available to them. And we would attempt to try to recruit them and sign them up before then, obviously. So then there were issues dealing with the funding and how we would handle that and so forth. So these are all really important steerage things, and I think we did a great job to move forward on that, Shannon. I wanted everyone to be aware.
We also have a workshop scheduled for January the 16th at 10 a.m. with the state and Chimney Rock Village, Brown Engineering, or UAB, and council. So we'll be meeting with Chimney Rock Village to go over their system. It's very unique, and we need to make sure we nail down the parameters for that. I think the next item is the dam renovation, and we have with us tonight Jonathan Pittman. He's the engineer with Schnabel. And Jonathan, if you'll come to the mic, and let's just talk just for a minute. We have this on our consent, and what's in your packet basically is an expansion or a modified version of task order number 1. In some sections we call it task order number 2. Some sections we call it modified a task order number 1. And basically the expanded scope basically allows us then to do the things that Dr. Marks either didn't do or perhaps didn't do in a way that we find acceptable. And in addition to that, Schnabel will be looking at innovation of downstream and also giving us some SOPs for operating the gates at the dam, and that's also part of this. So, Jonathan, what have I missed? Welcome, by the way. Yeah, they've been crawling all over the dam and have been working extremely hard.
You covered, what that task order number 2, the scope of work in there includes. This focus really on hydrology and hydraulics and related requirements from the state and to meet those.
So we're working towards a late February time frame when pretty much all of your technical investigations, analysis reports, and so forth would be done, and you'll be coming back and presenting to us your findings and recommendations on what you think we should do going forward to repair and renovate our dam.
Correct, yeah, this first phase, kind of evaluation of existing conditions will be wrapping up towards the end of February. This task order number 2, the hydrology and hydraulics piece is integral to that first phase of work, understanding how those conditions, may affect the dam, how the dam meets state requirements from that perspective, and that sort of thing.
And then so far, just to bring everybody up, that you guys have completed a number of these tasks in task order 1, which included a very detailed investigation of the wet side or the front side of the dam with underwater divers and videotaping and some work there. And you also did an additional geological sort of a survey out there, looking at information that we've gotten before with some of Dr. Marks's investigations, but also coming back out with your geologist and understanding the relationship of the geology and the dam. And then you also did some very intensive survey work, right, which involved, high order kinds of technologies in order to very, very accurately be able to measure the dam, if that's the right term, right?
Yeah,
And because you guys need this when you are now doing this really sophisticated finite element analysis, which is building a very detailed computer model of the dam and basically incorporating what you see as its conditions, and then you can subject it to various types of future conditions that could test the dam, seismic or over top, or that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you nailed it. The survey's complete, the underwater dive work's complete. We did a fairly comprehensive visual inspection using, our eyes and the eyes of drones and such to look at some things, and then geologic mapping.
Geologic
of the
thing?
downstream.
So then some of these other things you can do is a scouring analysis in the event that, which we don't want to happen, that the dam were to be overtopped, the impact of having the overtop water impact behind the dam, what would that do?
Correct.
To the dam would be the scour analysis, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, understanding, on these types of structures, it's important to understand if water did go over the dam during a design event, how would the foundation
And you've
respond to
actually
that? So-
confirmed to us that the design of the dam is actually designed to do that in an extreme situation, right? I mean,
It is.
The top of that dam is configured to allow water to overtop it in different stages, depending on the volume coming in, right?
Correct, that's why the arches are at different heights.
Right.
Is to regulate that
Uh-huh.
flow in those large events. But
Good.
obviously, no one wants to see it happen, but it was,
Well, I, for one, am really happy with the work that you're doing. I'll just speak for myself. Being an engineer, I think I know what you're doing, and I think you're doing a very thorough job, and everything I've heard seems to be backed up with some good facts and information. So thank you very much for that.
I got one question. I wanted to make sure on these critical path items that you're showing on your chart for us, that your initial modeling and review supposed to be completed by 12/11 of 18, and then after that, your final modeling and review on your critical path shows need to be done sometime about mid-January. Are we on schedule since those are critical path items? I was make sure there's no surprises on those.
yeah, we are on schedule, so the survey was kind of critical path, so again, understanding the geometry of that structure, and that's developing the final geometry and modeling is in progress right now. We're on schedule for those.
Okay, just going by your chart you've issued here, so
Yep.
just want to make sure we're still on task.
Talking about line items 16 and 17.
That's
I think.
correct.
Right. So, yes, we're still on schedule for those.
I don't think anyone here would want to say what the final report is going to be like, but I would say, and this may be somewhat premature, but when they finish their work mid-February and we have the final document we will be looking at their work, and we'll be looking at Dr. Marks's work and comparing the two. And I think we're on the right path. We may come up with some different conclusions about the dam as a result, So just want to keep that open and just kind of let you guys be aware that we're going to be paying attention to that. And the condition of the dam, we may get somewhat of a different narrative on the condition of the dam. We may. So.
And one last thing, did you remember to bring the photographs with you?
I did. I put them on Shannon's chair.
Excellent,
They've
yeah.
been scanned on a flash drive.
Yeah, what we're talking about are, the folks over at Isothermal Community College called us a while back and informed us that they had been the recipient of, I don't know what, several dozen, maybe
Yes,
50.
44.
44, he counts them. 44 photos that were taken by what we understand was the original operator of the dam while the dam was under construction for the purpose of documenting the way in which the dam was being constructed. And for the engineers who were looking at plans that were less than complete, construction plans, and never knowing whether those plans were as-built or not, you never know that. It just was the way the engineer said it would be built. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the way the contractor built it. And so these photographs, I would think, have been very valuable to Schnabel and in terms of giving them a little bit more insight into just exactly what's in that dam and what's not in that dam and how it got built, and
Yeah, it's invaluable.
hopefully that they were, and we can thank Walter Dalton, the president out there, for understanding the potential value of that and getting the photographs to us. And they may, either the original photographs themselves or the images, you've scanned them and you have the images and they came out really well.
Yeah, the scanning came out really well, so.
Those photographs or the images, we're not sure what the ultimate repository of the photographs are going to be. It may be at the library at ICC. We don't know yet how that's going to be secured. But one way or the other, we're going to have a lot of photographs here for dam someday. We need to figure out a good way to use them, right, in the town. So thanks a lot for
Yeah, sure, thanks.
Do we have any other questions for him?
No, thank you, John.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming down. We
Thank
appreciate you
Thanks
being
for
here.
having me.
All right. Shannon?
Sure. The next item, next two items, ask Mr. Burton to update us on the Commercial Center and the Welcome Center. Mr. Burton is our new project manager for these two projects. He's already making headway, and he has Gantt charts he's going to pass out. He's been in conversation with the architects as well as a contractor who's going to give us a bid on one of the projects soon.
I'd like to say that we were concerned here yesterday whether he was going to be ready, whether he was going to be ready today because the school dance that was supposed to be here, but the school dance got canceled, so he's able to get all his work done yesterday.
It's a tough environment, going on, I'm just gonna tell you.
If you don't know, the school uses this for a dance about every couple of months after school. I had the pleasure of being here last month, and it's quite the time, I'm here to tell you. This place is rocking.
He's one off. We need one of yours down here. There you go.
You got everything? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. As of last Thursday, Mr. Baldwin bestowed this gift upon me, and so I'm looking forward to working with you, excuse me, and the architects on this. I'll call your attention to the Gantt charts that were provided to you. Put these together in collaboration, with talking with Odom Engineering, Brady Tracus Architectural, Jesse Placer Architectural, and Bernie Dilgert, who is a contractor that the town has commissioned to provide us a bid for the future ABC site as to what scope and breadth of those charges may be. We're still waiting to get that last tidbit of information. I talked with him today, this afternoon, and he is waiting on the electrical. I believe we have mechanical, we've got structural, we've got Mr. Odom stuff, so that's coming along. And we'll probably, once get that information, I'll be passing that to you guys, and we'll probably need to have a meeting or something along those lines with that. But just real quick, these are, again, all the parties that have been involved have vetted and reviewed these Gantt charts. Mr. Dilgert says I have a little bit of cushion in there, a little bit maybe more than I should, but some of these are high variable projects that are going to have a lot of variables that we may not be able to control, specifically with and so what you're looking at is a potential rendition of what these projects would look like if they go live, say, sometime in January. And so I'm not going to go through these and waste your time. There is a front and back to these, so just to let you know that. But that's pretty much where we are. As soon as I get the rest of that information, plans are done already for the Welcome Center. We're still waiting. We just received the last set of plans for the commercial center, and that was the final thing that Mr. Dilbert needed in order to get his bid package together. So as soon as we get that, I'll be getting that information to you.
So just to reemphasize, if I may, so we just received the final plans for the commercial center. So Maple Leaf Construction, which is Bernie Dilbert, will be giving us a realistic cost. When we say bid, the inference may be that he's bidding on the job. He's not.
I should have been clear about that.
It's a cost for the commercial, and at that point, we'll share that cost with you. And Brad also will be working with Sam on the financing of both pieces. So he's already been digging into that with Sam.
Yes.
And just want to thank Brad. We were he got this just recently, and he's already made a lot of headway, and I think it's a fresh start. He's wrapping up some of his other projects. He's had experience in project management. He's the right guy for this job, and he'll make it happen. So thank you for stepping up, Mr. Martin.
Yes, sir. Any questions? No? Okay. Thank you.
Good job, man.
Next item on our list is dredging moratorium, and I think Mr. Gibbons has some information he wants to share with us about that.
As far as the dredging goes, it's moving forward. Everything seems to be working seamlessly, not had any problems out there. Last month, I'd mentioned to this board that I was looking into the trout moratorium, and I did make some headway on that. I've finally gotten confirmation back from the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission that we do not have to adhere to the trout moratorium, which is in place from March to June each year, so we are able to dredge year-round. That moratorium is actually now put in place at the Flowering Bridge uphill.
West.
Yes, west. So everything east of that bridge is out of the trout moratorium now.
Did we get that in writing from them?
I have that in writing, sir. And
That's not the trout buffer.
No.
That's the trout moratorium.
Right, got it.
Spawning moratorium.
So
He's working on the buffer.
I got it.
yeah, after having success there, I've started in on the trout buffer, not getting as much headway there. I spoke with, his name slipped my mind.
Stan Aiken.
Yes, Stan Aiken, and he is going, he did tell me he was going to contact you, Mr. Mayor.
He did, and I'll report when you're done.
Okay, and I felt that when he had asked me about that and said that he knew the mayor really well, I said, well, it might help for you to purvey this to both of us so that, you know, we kind of get the gist of what we need to do here. So trout moratorium is gone, and now we're looking at trout buffer.
That's huge.
Yep.
It is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks.
Well, I can report some follow-up on that. I did speak with Stan, and we had a nice conversation. He completely understands our position. He is the enforcement person, though, not the policy person. And so he can't really change a classification. But what I was surprised to find out, because I've heard it is so difficult, you know, and they never, hardly ever change the classification. I mean, that's a little background I've heard. Then it was surprising to me when he gave me the phone number of the person in Raleigh whose title is Reclassification Coordinator. I'm quite sure why we'd need a coordinator if we never do this. So, her name is Elizabeth, I want to say, I don't know.
Coordinator.
Elizabeth. And I have her number, and as of today, I haven't called her, but as of tomorrow morning, I intend to do that, to speak to her about what the process is and just how, what kind of scientific information they would need to see, and if there's a application or whatever it is, and let her know that we're pretty committed to doing this, unless she has a good reason why we shouldn't. And so we'll move forward with that.
If I could add, I just happened to Google trout buffer yesterday, and I found on there where there is a reclassification application and a set of instructions and the link to them.
All right.
So you can download it, and it tells you everything you need to do. I also found some minutes from 1979 where the council was talking about that trout buffer, or starting at the bridge going upstream. So how it ever got to be misinterpreted as coming down this side of the bridge, I don't know.
Well, one of the things
That was that moratorium, I guess, but waters are still classified as Class B trout, so.
One of the things that Stan Aiken told me was that, and he researched this while I was on the phone, apparently has the maps, and most of all of the feeder streams, including the Rocky Broad, that come into the lake are classified at one level or another. There's several levels of trout water classifications. The good news, he told me, was the fact that the river downstream of the dam is not classified as a trout waters. And he said if it was, then you may run into some problems with that, but the fact that it's not probably works pretty good in your favor. And I would just add one last thing, to this discussion, in terms of, I'm all about not having that type of restriction or regulation if it's simply not necessary. If they're on trout there, when I have it that, why? I'm sure there are things about that regulation which wouldn't necessarily benefit any other shoreline preservation policy, but just the same, if we are successful in removing the trout buffer, I would like to think that we have some type of policy and regulation. I think the lakefront property owners would appreciate that, in which we do have responsible regulation of our shoreline, so that in the absence of this highly restrictive, environmentally based regulation, we have other regulations that protect our shoreline, so we probably should be working on that as we're working on getting rid of a trout buffer, because we would need something to replace it, right? So, anyway, that's it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next item we want to report on is our new bucket truck. That's something that's been a hot item. I think Mr. Airwood is going to give us a report on the bucket truck and give us an update on the small generator.
Bring it out back so we can go out and look at it and go.
Not giving free rides?
As you are all aware, that we were budgeted to purchase a used bucket truck in this year's budget. I rode and looked and called and checked out several trucks that I didn't think was a good fit for this town. But while online at home myself, I found one in Greenville, South Carolina, that appeared to be a pretty nice truck. So the next morning, I called the guy, got directions. Next morning, make a long story short, I went to Greenville, and it was everything he said and more. It is a used truck, but it is a 99 model F-350 with 9,975 actual miles. It is a one owner. A retired electrician had bought it, and his wife said nothing would do but for him to buy that bucket truck. And she said, I don't think he ever made $1 with it. She said he changed all his buddies' flagpole. They're all alive. Said he changed a few lights at the church, but this thing was always garage kept inside. I mean, super nice truck. And he had passed on, so his wife was selling that some of his stuff. But I went down, checked it out, drove it around, reported back to Shannon what I'd found, and And at the end of the day, I ended up purchasing that truck for $12,000. We had $45,000 budgeted to purchase the truck, and, but I have seen it, I've had new tires put on it, I've had it serviced, got a cover for the bucket, safety harnesses. We still got a few things to do. We're putting strobe lights and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, 15,000 or less, we're gonna be in that truck, and it should last this town a long time.
I've got a suggestion. They're talking about a car show in the spring. We should have that bucket truck entered in that car show. That's it.
As long as But I think it was a real good find, and I don't think that the town of Lake Lure is out a whole lot of money for what we got. I think it'll be something we can use for a lot of years. It's a 46 and a half foot bucket, which is very unusual for a 1 ton. This one also has outriggers, which is very unusual for a 1 ton. It's a pretty nice outfit. The lady said her husband gave $40,000 for the body and the boom when it was put on the truck new, back in '99. So it should have lasted for a long time, and it should do what we need to do.
So thank you, David.
You're quite welcome. Good job.
And Bob.
Bob
Cameron.
Yeah, and Bob. Bob helped a ton. I actually even called Bob while I was down there, and I said, looky here.
So if you buy for that, go for it.
Yeah, I was so impressed, and I have no need for a bucket truck. I would have purchased it myself.
Bucket truck on like that.
Look at here, honey. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, she don't even look out the windows anymore when I come in. But anyway, I think it was a good purchase, and I think we'll get a lot of use out of it for a long time. The next thing on the thing is an update on the little generator. It's still pecking right along. Last week, nothing at all was done. John Wilson, that's been working on it, has not been there today or yesterday. He had some damage at home from the storm that he's been dealing with, but I think he'll be back tomorrow and fly back in and try to continue on. He's getting pretty close to the part that he's going to set the generator and stuff back on there. I have a little bit of a concern about that because Charlie Merrick, the engineer that originally took on this project, that's the biggest part he's going to be needed throughout this process, and he just had to have surgery. So he's going to be out, I think, for just a few weeks, but I've got to call into him and see what the status is of that and when he can get back. But it is still pecking forward as far as everything that was sent off and redone. All of that's back in place. So I hope we're over the hump with that now. The other thing you had mentioned, Shannon, was the roof and the doors, the roof entrances in front of the police department, and as you come in out here next to Brad's office, those roofs have been torn off and replaced with standing seam metal instead of the old terracotta that was there, and when it was raining, you'd have to go out in the parking lot to stay dry because it was leaking so bad, but those have been repaired. The door at the police department has not been repaired yet. Marathon Builders, which done a good job on the roofs, are going to fix that door. They had ordered a new door and frame and everything, special ordered it. Took forever to get here. It gets here, he uncrates it, it's damaged. So he has to turn around and send it back. And the last I was told by him was that, it's reordered, it's waiting, and once it gets here, he'll install it. So other than that, things just picking along.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, David.
Thank you. So just to recap, with Brad and Dean and David, you get a fine example of the guys that are staying on top of our work. We're doing a great job. So thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Shannon, did you have a chance to pass that graph out to the other guy?
I did not. I'll do it right now. David, we'll let you explain it.
Something the mayor I know will understand this because he watches this graph a good deal. I do know lake levels is something that I have found out in the last several months is pretty critical to the people of the town and the council members and mayor and stuff. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Mitchell Anderson, standing here, he is our second shift hydro plant operator. He's
Mitchell, will you
the one that walked 5 miles to work and 5 miles home.
You need to clean that up.
Mitchell has been here a month and a half now, is that correct? He has went above and beyond. He is going to be a super good asset to this town. Last week, Mayor, don't feel bad, you wasn't the only one gone. I was on vacation as well during the storm in Florida. But in my absence, Donnie, our plant operator, was on vacation as well. So that left Mitchell Anderson, our less than 2-month experienced operator, to take care of the dam. I had no doubts in my mind John Wilson was willing to help him with any issues he had, if any. But if you look at that, he flatlined that lake for a solid week by himself.
Nice job.
He held that lake. He done a super good job, and I want him to be recognized for it.
Thank you, Dave, for calling Mitchell out. Thank you, Mitchell.
All right, Shannon?
That's it.
Ready to move on there?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, thank you very much. Good report.
Thank you.
That moves us into item number 6, new business, and the first item on there of new business, Dean, again, this is kind of a Dean Gibbons meeting, is the Lake Lure Tours Concession Agreement Addendum. There are several sub-items under that. We want to talk about the floating dock that people can now see out there, the beach modifications that they're proposing, and they're asking for a change in the concession agreement provision regarding fuel sales, and then finally, there is a provision in the agreement that deals with the renewal, or optional renewal of the agreement right now for the marina, and they're talking about and asking for a possibility of having that same terminology applied to the beach, right?
Yeah, I think that part of it's going to be...
It's going to be tabled for now?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to go through those and tell us what each area, what you need?
83 in our book.
83.
Yeah.
Okay, what I just handed you guys out that's going to be on the floating dock when we get to that section there. On this first part, renewal language for the gross sales of the marina fuel concession agreement. It's laid out before you. In this concession agreement, it was, Ron Nally had put in there, and this part of it was to go from 2% to 15% commission on the fuel and other concession items with the town, and George and them have done a nice job of laying out a grid here to kind of show you what kind of impact they are receiving from that type of increase on the fuel. Fuel cost surges so much, and their small tank and stuff, fuel's expensive, so what they're asking for is to go to a 5% concession opposed to the 15%. They're still willing to go up from the 2%.
So it was 2% before?
Yeah, and it went up to 15%, and they're asking for a reduction into that because they're actually taking a loss on the gas that they're buying now. And they're not asking for that 15% to change on any of the other stuff. They're just asking for relief on that, and they're giving a good case here of why they're asking for that.
Okay. All right, so we want to just discuss that first item?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked over it in the same way. We don't need to expect anybody to sell something at a loss.
Right.
You know, doesn't matter what the rest of the agreement is, but any part of that, I even ran some numbers trying to split the profit 50-50, and it still comes out around 5%. So I have no objection to it, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I have no objection to it.
Any other discussion? So I guess then, just to take that issue, I would entertain a motion to instruct Dean to modify that agreement, to reflect that and bring that back for signatures.
I'll be glad to make a motion that we take the part of the fuel and reduce that percentage from 15% down to 5%, and it's only for that item that is in concession agreement.
I second that.
Second that, Commissioner Weber. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, Dean, next item?
Okay, next item I've got here, if I skip something, please let me know, is the floating dock. Lake Lure Tours came to the town with a proposal to use a 200-foot section of floating dock that the town acquired through the acquisition of the Boys Camp Road property. That dock was washed out of the river at one of our storms this year, and it was broken in two. And the section that they're looking at actually measures out to be about 200 feet. They've got pictures in your book where they want the dock at, where the proposed location's at. Also gave a few other pictures to kind of give you an actual land view from it. And we moved the dock. Right after they brought this to the Parks and Rec Board, the Parks and Rec Board requested to see the dock in place so that they could actually walk out there and look at it. They felt like it might be an impediment. Just a few days after the meeting, we went out and moved the dock into place, and it's really been stubborn to stay there because of the way we had to tie it off. The winds coming through the cove have really been pushing it around, but we pretty much got it there. I've seen it from the land. I hope each of you have. To me, I mean, really, unless you know if you're looking for it, you see it. Other than that, I don't see an impediment with this thing. But the paper I just handed you out separately, those are things that Lake Lure Tours is willing to pay to take care of. They're paying for, or they would be willing to pay for any type of repairs to this dock, new anchoring system for the dock, power for the dock, anything they need to do. They're more than willing to step up and take care of that project as is. This went through the LAB. The LAB supported this dock in its location, and it also has went through Parks and Rec Board. Parks and Rec Board's first inclination was they wanted to see it in place and be able to go look at it. And if I could call on Commissioner Weber to let him report exactly what the feeling of the Parks and Rec Board was.
Yeah, the Parks and Rec Board met on I think it's December the 6th for the regular meeting. And after some discussion and after everybody having had the opportunity to view it in place, the ultimate recommendation and unanimous recommendation from the Parks and Rec Board was no on a permanent basis, yes on temporary for things like boat shows and events, and they did not feel that it should be positioned coming off of the peninsula at Pool Creek. Their recommendation was that it come off of the two wooden public docks that are already at this end of the beach area. Seemed to be the major factor that seemed to be the basis for opposition was the view. And the concerns about docks boats being docked there whenever it's not in use for a show at such and so on, and it simply becoming another marina out in the middle of that bay. Along with, there was, in the original proposal, there were 4 expectations that we could expect from that. Which enhancing the tourism and the chapter of American Classic Boat Society, provide resident and visitor temporary public boat dockage during September through April, allow for greater security and safety for beachgoers and swimmers during Memorial Day through Labor Day, and generate additional revenues to the town of Lake Lure through concession income obtaining through the use of dockage and ramp by the concessionaire. The board in general felt that number one was the only valid justification for the dock being used, which would be on a temporary basis for the boat shows, and that the other three are things that the town already gets from the concession, and that would not really add anything extra. Now, we were handed another paper tonight that I really haven't had an opportunity to look in detail, and I'm sure that none of the Parks and Rec members have seen them. However, I want to convey to you the recommendation of the board was temporary only and to be from the public piers that are already there. And if necessary, if the one didn't give it to you, use both of them from the public piers for your boat shows.
Dean, did the Lake Advisory Board make the recommendation before or after it was pulled around where you could see it?
After they actually made the recommendation last night, or at yesterday morning's meeting, I'm sorry, not last night, but yesterday morning.
So both boards had the opportunity to see it in place?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, so discussion, any further discussion here? I do see, George, if there any comment that you would want to make in this regard? Not?
Was not aware of the Parks and Rec's decision or opinion as expressed by Commissioner Webb. So I'm kind of unaware by that, but that's okay.
Yeah, okay.
This is a case where we got the Lake Advisory Board recommending it, and the other board, the other direction, so I look at it, and from what I've seen, and with the low profile of it, your elevation, if you're on the highway, you're looking straight across everything in China. It'll take some management. Well, at first, I'm sure we'll get a pontoon boat or somebody pull up there and want to, and that's just normal behavior, but I have no issue with it whatsoever. I don't see what the problem would be. I hate to go against one board versus other board, but we've got a 50-50 chance here, so I believe that my personal opinion is the Lake Advisory Board looks at the lake, anything else is on the land, so the Lake Advisory Board says, hey, they don't have a problem with it, then I don't have a problem with it.
My comment would be, we did discuss it in great detail yesterday. I think it's a situation where if we do it this way and it doesn't work, we can always change it if need be. So I think I have no problem with it this way. I'm looking forward to a boat show, and there's already some things in the works that are working toward that. So I have no issues with it, and I support the Lake Advisory Board.
Yeah, I'm fine with it as long as we don't make it a long-term commitment. We have the option to review it again, maybe this time next year.
So essentially, Commissioner Moore, are you saying approve it for a year, 1-year term to see, to judge?
Yeah, I'm just saying that, approve it for a year and, see if we have any issues with it. It's easy enough to move around, right, Dean?
Well, but there was intended to be, I think, a significant capital investment from Mr. Whitmer regarding the finger piers and everything along with this project, so it wasn't simply the dock by itself. So I don't know what impact that'd have.
Yeah, well, it'd have an impact.
There were some other appurtenances. Right now, for instance, some of the floats are damaged. They need to be replaced on the dock that was washed out of the river. There are some additional couplings on the side that need to be added. It has some on one side, there need to be couplings on the other side. So there are other modifications that need to be made to make it work for the boat show. So Mr. Whitmer may want to weigh in.
George, do you know about how much you would have invested in that?
It would only be rough numbers.
That's okay.
With the finger piers, with the repairs on the dock itself, plus the mounting of the ramp to the dock, and the thing appears, and the refurbishing of the float, which we just got quotes on today, neighborhood of probably around $20,000. I may be being conservative with that, but we're certainly have no problem doing so. Principally because of what we truly believe will be an enhancement of the attraction of the beach and the use thereof.
Yeah, well, I think the other positive thing for this is, we talk about wanting to bring events into Lake Lure so that folks can eat in the restaurants and stay in our accommodations and shop in our shops. And this type of facility will help us do just that. I already gotten a call from Bill Ashman, who said they're looking at the spring, and that may be coupled with a car show event, and they're already hear rumblings of possibly doing one in the fall. This would be a reoccurring event for the town. That's real economic development.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
They're going to put people right in our town center.
In a sense, it'll be a water stage. I mean, you know, you build these things on land, and this will be an area that they can actually use as a stage. It bounces off the beach, and, you know, in correlation with that, I mean, I think that the possibilities for this thing is quite large. And as I said before, if we find out that it's a epic fail, that the town just doesn't want it, Lake Lure Tours doesn't want it, it's a floating dock. I mean,
Move it somewhere.
lift it up and let's do something else.
Well, question regarding the concession agreement addendum on that particular item. Was that going to be for, I think it's what, 5 years is the agreement, current concession agreement, and that falls under marina or?
Well, we have a concession agreement with two facets.
Right.
One is the operation of the marina and the tours and rental boats, motorized rental boats there. And we have another one for the operation of the beach. So the language that was put together for the operation of the marina and Lake Lure tour boats and rental boats has exactly the same language that was in the prior concession agreement, which says that it also has the same language that was presented in this room at the pre-bid in early 2016. Spring of 2016, this process started. And the town manager at that time, I think Dean was there, confirmed to the potential bidders that the concession agreement, generally speaking, not specified, that the concession agreement would be for a 5-year period with a 5-year renewal upon successful completion.
Right.
And that's how everybody bid on the project.
Right.
And then, as you all know, there was a lot of interesting conversation after, in the fall of 2017.
Right.
And then the result was that the beach concession agreement renewal language says that the contract is in effect for a 5-year period. And that then, at the end of the 4th year, the council, or the town manager and the concessionaire would meet to discuss their intentions going forward.
Right, and that was intentional at that time with the committee that was comprised of 3 different boards, Asset Management, Lake Advisory, and Parks and Rec, and 2 representatives from each board was on that committee that designed the concession agreement. My question, though, and we have the terms of the renewal on the beach as a different item tonight, but regarding the floating dock, which addendum, where does that fall? Is that under the marina and the tours, or is that under the beach?
I would assume it would be, and assuming is all I can do at this point. Our assumption is Lake Lure Tours is the concessionaire at the beach, that this would be a beach amenity, which would be governed by the same 15% commission to the town as in all other beach activity.
Yeah, I'm just looking at if it's approved where it goes in that concession agreement is what I'm looking
I
at.
would assume it falls under the head of the beach concession agreement. That informs our interest in reviewing the language of renewal.
Right.
Because the number I gave you earlier, as I sat there after I said it, I'm like, George, you kind of winged it with that one. That may be half this will really cost. But the point is, we have other projects to be considered tonight, and others that will be discussed going forward. Again, as required and pledged by the tours under the concession agreement, we have other projects to look forward to. And as each council member, as I'm sure you recognize, that sometimes investments need to be considered in terms of amortization, over what period of time we want to expect to recoup. And that informs our request, even though it's presented separately, our request about the language of renewal.
Are the finger piers that you would be purchasing, would you remain the owner of those once your current contract, if it ended, or would those become part of the town property?
That question was raised at the LAB yesterday, and I was speaking for Lakewood Tours, and my answer was we see no reason why they should not, if the dock is the property of the town, the finger piers should be as well. We don't have it, we have no particular desire to own a dozen finger piers without a dock.
Okay. I do want to mention that during the Parks and Rec meeting, I even brought up the fact that whenever we were talking about, or they were talking about the temporary usage of it only, and I mentioned and pointed out that Mr. Whitmer's intent on his original proposal was to purchase these finger piers, and that was not of great concern to the Parks and Rec Board. They just felt that it might be more of an obstruction in inhibiting the view in that area. So I need to report that.
Well, there is some complexity in the fact that if it's there only for a year and has to be moved, it has finger piers attached to it, and we're asking it to go back to where it's currently located, there's going to be some issues.
That's why I wanted to mention the finger piers. So if it's approved with the finger piers, you're right. That really, the 1 year thing would be unrealistic.
Are you still proposing, John, that it be just 1 year?
No, that's what I was fine with.
Okay. So you withdrew the 1 year?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at there and all that.
If there's no other conversation on this, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this floating dock with apparatus, and that it runs in concert with this contract for the length of time with the contract.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Kilby. Any further discussion about this? If there's none, then all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
No.
Okay.
And
You don't have to just.
because of the unanimous recommendation of the Parks and Recreation Board, and where I felt they brought out some good points, and I don't see where we cannot achieve some of these benefits with it in a temporary usage.
Okay.
However, my vote is a moot point in this situation.
Okay, thank you. Dean, next item.
Okay, the next thing is it's with Lake Lure Tours also. It is it's a beach stand. It would be located off of Memorial Highway between the arcade building and the beach, kind of closer to Lake Lure Tours. This would be a cutout in the fence that borders the beach, and a viewing deck would be built out over the beach. The fence would then turn in and go around this viewing area with even the metal on the top of it to keep people from going into the beach. It would have a viewfinder in it, and it would give people, this is one of the busiest areas that people like to stop when they're walking through town to take pictures. And this would give them a way to get off of the boardwalk out of foot traffic and allow them to enjoy the views, take pictures, look through the viewfinder, and kind of enjoy that area a little bit. Lake Lure Tours is proposing to do the construction. They're proposing to pay for everything. This is something that they would just like to add to that center there. And when Lake Advisory Board, this is not necessarily lake, but it was still brought amongst them with the dock and stuff, and they thought it was a great idea. They didn't have any reservations on it, even though it's kind of not their area, but I brought it to them anyway because I was bringing them all of this stuff at the same time, and they seemed to like the idea.
Discussion?
If I can chime in on this one, the Parks and Rec Board on their special meeting on November the 15th heard this proposal, and they unanimously recommended approval of it. The ironic thing is this is going to be looking right out at the dock, that we're talking about a viewing stand, and their heartburn with the other one was the view. So,
Okay. I think, Shannon, one thing to, at least to bring out, we have recently adopted a new master design plan for the beach and boardwalk and marina that would involve pretty substantial rework modification to the boardwalk in the area that this is being proposed, right? And I assume, George, are you aware of that, the plan? So you were, obviously. We have no idea what the timing of that project would be, but I assume you've made this offer, recommendation, or whatever, in full view of that, right?
Full consideration of the fact that it may go away if we improve the beachfront.
Yeah, I just wanted everyone.
First applauded by the organization.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure we're all aware of that. We never have. Okay, so with those two committee recommendations, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that we accept the drawing for the viewing stand as proposed to us.
I'll second it.
And then we have a second? All right, any further discussion? I would just add, and what we're talking about is this involve another modification to the concession agreement then, to reflect this, or is this just a capital project standing on its own?
it would fall under the concession agreement for the beach.
Yeah, I would say so. The only revenue this will generate is the quarters out of the beachfront.
You're not gonna,
The town will get 15% of that.
there's no charge to sit on the benches?
No charge.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Dean, is there anything else here? Have we?
Well, the fourth item, we may just want to kind of brief the board on that just a little, in that, unfortunately, we've had a couple of folks fall on the existing wood boardwalk, and they ended up in the emergency room. And so that boardwalk is in bad condition. If you look at it when the lake is down, you get underneath it, you look at it, David's seen it, Brad's seen it, Dustin's seen it, he's been on it, Dean's seen it, I've seen it. It's in bad condition, it needs to be replaced. We've had North Carolina League of Municipalities come up, they've reviewed it with us, insurance concerns. We're on a schedule where we go over that boardwalk once a week, and we tap down any nails, we replace any boards. That boardwalk is very important to maintain pedestrian circulation in our town center between Morris Park and the beach and the rest. Again, where people can walk, and they can eat, and they can stay, and they can shop. That's an important part to our town center. So what we're looking at now is possibly taking down the wooden boardwalk and replacing that with a floating dock similar to what we've been discussing, except that it would be wider, it would have rails, it would be in the exact location that the Town Center Master Plan Amendment that was approved by this board would be in the same location. and we would fix it so that it would be integrated in with the beach on one side and integrate in with the marina on the other side. And we're looking at various funding sources. And one of those would be a request with the current concessionaire without participation in those costs. But we have other funding sources we're going to go to as well. One is instantaneous revenue generated by the new slips that would be added as a result. And so that's an area where Dean has developed a lot of skill and expertise. So we're going to bring the site plan and the cost back to you January 1. And we will have them at your January meeting in time for the discussion and negotiation about adding, changing the terms to the beach agreement. And we'll have these costs at that time. So we'll have that, and we'll also share those with Mr. Wood.
I don't mind on the terms of renewal on the beach and the concession agreement. I don't mind it being modified to align with the other portion of the concession agreement, which is tours and marina. And that's where it says it's for 5 years, and then upon successful completion it'll be renewed. Right now, the beach part doesn't say that. The others do. And I don't mind going forward with that tonight. Now, the involvement of Mr. Whitmer in the boardwalk repairs and enhancement and replacement, that's a different item to discuss. As far as the agreement being modified.
I'll defer to the board as to what you'd like to do. I was holding that up as a point of negotiation in January, where we're able to trade maybe some additional years for additional investment on some of our capital needs. But if the board wants to approve the agreement on the beach today, you certainly can.
We'll look at it in January. Okay, that's fine.
We do it all at once? Is that your preference?
all at once in January.
Okay.
So that's a project that's going to help our town center. It's good for pedestrians. Again, that's real economic development.
That's good.
So those three were approved, and the other one we're waiting for January.
And the Boys Camp Road Concept Master Plan, is that now, or?
Later.
Yep.
You don't
I'll
get
be
to
back to see.
Not saying anything, sorry. We no longer have the William issue, but we did modify that.
You need to rest in between, right?
Dean, you need to take a lunch break?
All right, the next item that we've moved up on the agenda is these board appointments, and we have here at the year end, we have a bundle of them to be considering and making. Each of the commissioners and I have the voting slips in front of us to, maybe it would be best to go ahead and take a little pause, make sure we all have a chance to vote. Just take a few minutes, and then we'll pass these down to Shannon. Can you be the tabulator of the votes?
I'll do it.
And as you go through the votes, then you can advise each of us what the board is and who were the candidates and what the voting was. Would that be, rather than doing that up front?
Do you want them all, or one board at a time?
One board at a time?
Give me the name of the first board.
Yes, please.
Don't we have a resolution conflicting with part of this? We have an individual applying for zoning and planning that's already on the board. We have a resolution that was done in '95 that limits people to one board, except for the Board of Adjustment Lake Structure Appeals Board, and that's specified therein. We also have now and have had in the past several conflicts or appointments that are contrary to that resolution because none of us knew about it.
Oh, okay.
And we currently have folks on the zoning and planning that are on two boards, and asset management on two boards and such,
Let's eliminate that,
Well, that's what I've said before, is if we could not find anything that repealed it, then maybe we should repeal it.
And I believe, didn't, Michelle, you did a little research for us as clerk to determine if there's anything in the state League of Municipalities, the state regulation of our town that would prohibit that, and you came back and said, no, you can go ahead and do that on your boards, right?
State allows dual.
Yeah.
Right, the state
Doesn't prohibit it. I think we should eliminate it if it hasn't been eliminated already, and rather than maybe go back through everything, just.
I agree.
Yeah, make a motion that if such prohibition exists, my motion is that we do away with it.
I don't know which one you're doing.
So you can be on as many boards as you're elected to.
You're willing to serve.
Willing to serve for
You're
you.
willing to serve. That sounds like a second to me.
It is a second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Is there? There being none, and all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, so let's move into these planning, these board, advisory board appointments, and we're going to take them one at a time. You have a recommendation on?
No, I'm sitting here with all of them.
I just did the planning and zoning
Let's do the planning.
board.
Planning and zoning.
All right, so let's pass that down to Shannon.
That'd be the one right there. Right? Planning and zoning.
Zoning and planning.
Zoning and planning. Parks and Rec.
There it is, still folded
It's
up.
still folded up. There you go.
So I assume unless there's a tie or something, I don't really get the vote, right?
Yeah, or you can vote. The way it does before, you can vote if you want to, and then if it's a tie, then it's counted.
All right.
You're okay with that, right?
It doesn't matter if I'm okay with it. It's the way it is.
You don't have to do it, you can wait and see if there's a
And
tie.
cast that vibrating thing.
But if it makes you feel good to fill out on.
No, I actually like the drama better. All right, so,
So you're gonna go ahead and.
yeah, he's gonna tally and then tell us, yeah.
Because he'll have a lot of paperwork.
Do we need to?
So let's get the next one keyed up. Lake Advisory Board, yeah, let's key that up.
Could you, for the benefit of, tell us how many spots are open and who the candidates are?
He is going to do that. When he tallies, he'll tell you that, and then he'll tell you what the voting is.
All right, for the zoning planning board, there were 3 positions open, and the 3 highest, and they've received all the votes, all the votes, was Keenan, Holden, and Diorio.
That was the only 3.
Yeah, there's only three applicants for 3 openings.
What you got now? Next one?
This is Lake Advisory Board. What's his name?
ABC Board.
ABC Board.
We'll do ABC next.
Yeah.
Yeah, put those letters in order. I'll have it ready for him. Pass them down, ABC, and I'll have it ready for him.
All right.
Okay. Yep.
Next one's going to be asset management. I like to be in control of that.
Okay. We've done this at asset management. Next.
Okay, the next one is the Lake Advisory Board. There were 2 positions open, and the highest vote getters were Yelton and Ashman.
ABC. Next.
Asset management.
Asset
Asset management.
And this board is going to dissolve in probably February.
The likelihood is yes.
Yes.
So, and both are incumbents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are temporary 3-year appointments.
Yeah, these are 3-year appointments for 2 months.
Next one was the ABC Board. There was 1 position open, and the highest vote getter was Maylee Keller.
Incumbent.
Parks and Rec next.
Parks and Rec next. Utility Board next.
one was the Asset Management Advisory Board. There were 3 positions open, and 2 of those have been filled, and those 2 highest vote getters were Ellis and Holden.
Board of Adjustment.
What are we doing next, utility?
Board of Adjustment.
Next is the Parks and Recreation Board. There were 3 positions open, and the 3 highest vote getters are Minnick, Watts, and H-A-U-G-H. Ho? H-O-U-G-H.
Now what?
That's it.
Is that it?
Yeah.
One more is what.
You got utility, and then you got Board of Adjustment.
Oh, yeah, Board of Adjustment.
This is a Lake Lure Utility Board, and there were 2 positions open, and Hyatt and Glasson were the highest vote getters.
Incumbents.
The next one is the Board of Adjustment. There were 2 positions open, and the highest vote getters were Bay and Hardy.
Lynn Hardy is the best draftee we've ever had, since we drafted him out of the audience.
He's the only draftee.
You notice he's not here tonight.
He's hoping the absence will make the heart grow fonder, right?
And now that he's been on it, he wanted to be reappointed.
Yeah, all good. All right, Shannon, is that it? Does that conclude our voting then?
That concludes it.
Okay, that brings us then to item number 7, which are the council liaison reports and comments. Bob, you want to?
I'll go first since you all done such a great job already.
Yeah.
They pointed out that we did have 2 meetings this past month, and as the mayor said, we had some great results. The only thing I will add to that is there were milestones set, and of course, the engineering submittal, the mayor mentioned, has been submitted now. The other milestones are going to be for the engineering report approval. That'll be by May 1st, 2019. Bid and design package submittal, we're looking for November 1st, 2019. Bid and design package approval, March 2nd by 2020. Be advertised for the project and receive bids by July 1st of 2020, and execute the contracts on August 3rd, 2020. And right now, we're assuming it's probably going to be about a 3-year project, which would be somewhere in the 2023 timeframe. So, working hard towards these goals, a lot of engineering to be done, and a lot of bidding to be done, specifications. That's my report.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Who'd like to go next?
I'll go next.
All right.
ABC Board actually met today. Sales were up for the past month, over the same month last year. I'd like to report that we do have openings at the ABC store, full-time and part-time available. We also have ad running for a new manager, for a new store manager. And that's it for the ABC store board that met today. And as far as Lake Advisory Board, Dean's pretty much worn that out tonight, so I don't really have anything else to add to that for tonight.
Okay. The Asset Management Advisory Board met on November 27th. There were no potential acquisitions discussed, no properties identified for disposition, and no property development activity discussed. So basically just winding that committee down and putting together a final report to give us at either January, but most likely our February meeting. And the Zoning and Planning Board is approved a recommendation to make a zoning change, and I'm not going to go over it and then have Brad go over it right behind me, so Brad will do a much better job. Yeah, so, and we'll get that from him.
Get that later in the
Yeah.
agenda. Stephen?
What, now, or?
No, it's on the agenda, isn't it, or?
I believe because of the fact that
No, it's
we
not.
moved the meeting ahead, it was advertised, but we did not have an opportunity to advertise it as per the regulations 2 weeks prior, so we're going to have to move it to January. So that's not going to happen. I'll still be glad to talk about
Yeah,
it.
no, I was talking about the last meeting.
Yes, the
Right.
rezoning that we're
Right.
supposed to hear tonight,
Right,
yeah,
Yeah.
we're not going to be able to hear it tonight.
right, okay.
And it has to schedule a public hearing for that?
Yes, that's what
And then you'll report
Okay.
next month?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right. Stephen?
The Board of Adjustment met on November the 20th and had one variance case, and it was granted. They happened to meet again today, since we got moved to today. They had a conditional use permit that was approved, which affects the Burgess Produce Stand. The outer appearance of that area is going to change a lot over the coming months. And they're going to be a little bigger and better. And I know a lot of folks like to buy stuff from that particular stand. Parking will be improved, safety will be improved, so it's a good move there. There was also a zoning variance for 2 very minor dimensional zoning variances over on Buffalo Shoals Road at a property. These are problems that were encountered, I guess, it being built, and so the variances were based on as-built, and they were approved. There were no Lake Structure Appeals Board cases in the last month, and not even today, so there were none heard. As far as you've already heard a great deal of the December 6th minutes of the Parks and Rec meeting, and it was a lengthy meeting. It's like 9 pages. The one thing that came out of that is the Dittmer Watts Park wants the town and the Public Works, and I've mentioned this to Shannon already, to get with DOT to look at installing some culvert there at the entrance to the Dittmer Watts Park, because the water builds up and then washes out the parking area and such. The biggest topic from the Parks and Rec Board was a discussion on the Parks and Rec, what was the Parks and Rec Director position, now the Parks and Rec Board or Coordinator position. And we're going to be talking about that particular position tonight, but to brief you on the Parks and Rec Board, bottom line is they were, last month, it was presented to us somewhat as a surprise to me. I acted less than professional during that meeting, and I admit it. 2 days later, I arranged a meeting. And during that meeting, the council suggested that there be a workshop between the council and the Parks and Recreation Board. 2 days later, I met with Commissioner Moore and Mr. Baldwin, and I apologize to Mr. Baldwin. We reached a compromise on the position, what I felt was reasonable, and since the Parks and Rec Board already had a meeting that day for a special meeting, we discussed the potential of them hearing it, and if they agreed with it, then there would not be a need for a workshop. The board heard it and basically approved it. During the December 6th meeting, the a citizen came, Mr. Brenneman, and presented comments to the board, and as a result, a lengthy discussion ensued. And to make a long story short, bottom line was, and the question was asked, why were they rushed on November 15th? And I told them that was my fault, that we felt like we could come out with without a workshop if the board approved it. But since that now was apparent that they did not agree with it, based on all the discussion I was hearing, I said, if you would like to have that workshop, then give me a motion and a request for it. They have done that. They are requesting that joint workshop with the council to discuss that position. And if you heard all the comments, it's worth listening to.
Okay. So that concludes our board liaison reports, and it does then move us into unfinished business, which now includes that item that was just discussed, which was, public comments. There were none, unless somebody else wanted to make one. I'm sorry, I skipped over that. If somebody does, we still have an opportunity. Hearing none, we'll go ahead then and move on. The unfinished business is this new Parks and Recreation position description.
The next item is consent agenda, which would be as
So we have to
amended.
vote on that, yes, you're right.
Consent agenda as amended.
Yes.
And we moved the other one to unfinished.
Right, okay, you're right, we did, we have the consent.
Right.
All right, so we have a consent agenda that, one of the items was removed, the other items included adoption of the November 13th Town Council meeting minutes, the 2019 meeting schedule, the amendment to the March 8th Special Town Council minutes, and then 2019-20 budget calendar, and then a budget amendment that deals with an additional work order, task order number 2 for, we heard about that, for Schnabel working on the dam. So those items now are on the consent agenda. I want to entertain a motion to
I'll make
accept
a
those.
motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Very good. Do you have a second?
I'll
Bob?
second it.
Seconds. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Sorry for rushing ahead here.
Well, I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you were right, you were right. I would have skipped that. We've had a consent agenda. So now, finally, we get to unfinished business. We have the one item that we moved down in there, which was just what we were discussing before the consent agenda, the new Parks and Recreation position description. Up front of the meeting, we said we may or may not decide to take up this topic, knowing that we have this issue of not having done a workshop and a request by the Parks and Recreation Board for that workshop. So what say the council members?
I'd like to make a motion that we postpone the new Parks and Recreation position description discussion. I only found out about this yesterday in the LAB meeting, and so I think we need to put that off until we can have a meeting, discuss, if we decide to have a joint meeting, get all that done and have that on the agenda for next month.
So we would need to have that workshop in your motion prior to January 8th, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Could the board consider possibly doing that in conjunction with their regular meeting, which is going to be January the 3rd? And then we meet on council on the 8th.
They made it 4 o'clock.
They meet at 1 o'clock, or 1:30. I can't remember.
I think that would be a good move, depends on what's on their agenda, if they're willing to shift that.
Yeah, we could do either way. We could meet with them at their regular scheduled time, or if we wanted to start this, if they wanted to have it here before our regular council meeting. Either way is
At
fine
4
with
o'clock,
me.
too.
Yeah.
4 o'clock?
Before our regular.
Or do you want to have, since they aren't here, some of them may have a conflict, but they wouldn't for 1 o'clock or 1:30. When is it?
Their meeting's at 1:30 on that first Thursday, the 3rd of
We're going to move at
January.
1:30.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to amend the motion to include that we meet at 1:30?
I'll amend the motion that we meet at 1:30.
In January.
January 3rd.
Okay, so we have a motion.
We'll have the result for the council.
So we have a second then?
Second.
John seconds?
I second.
Oh, this John seconds. That John. I got this John going on.
Trying to put this in my calendar.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? If there is none, then all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
I'll do it now.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes, sir.
Are there any points, we have some members of the Parks and Rec Board, Commissioner Weber certainly is here,
Yeah.
board members. Are there any points you'd like for me to bring out, bring to the meeting, some sort of research, so we can get cracking on that? We don't have a lot of time.
Here's pretty much a synopsis of the highlighted comments I wrote down as they were discussing that position and things that were unsettling to them, or they disagreed with, or weren't sure of, so as a start.
Can we say this, Shannon, that I just saw, and I didn't even read the entire minutes, the multi-page minutes of that meeting. I'd like to have a chance to read through that, and then I'll send you my comments before that, and others on the council can do the same.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach.
Yeah, that way we don't have to...
And that was January the 3rd.
Yeah,
Okay.
At 1:30?
1:30.
1:30.
Done and done.
Okay, and that brings us then back then to the finishing up of the new business items. We only have one left. This is under item 11, which was B, is Boys Camp Road Concept Master Plan. And in your, I guess in our packets, and I'm beginning on page 98, Dean, why don't you just come up in here? Yeah, right. Dean's again on the hot seat for his... Nothing personal. John's leaving? Nothing personal.
Do you want to talk if that's covered in the minutes?
Those are all your buddies.
Yeah, there are. I don't know that she captured everything in the minutes.
Look at this. There's your true friends.
I'll keep this and go through.
I've still got a few hecklers.
They wouldn't leave. All right, Dean, so take us through this. There's a bunch of exhibits and stuff in our packet here.
Okay, of course, this is about the Boys Camp Road property that we acquired from, that used to be the Gray Rock property. We've had many extensive meetings with Shannon and Community Development, myself, with Chimney Rock Village, Parks and Rec boards, and we've kind of worked this thing through the process. If you remember back, we talked about possibly expanding the Boys Camp Road spoils pit, and that in turn would align with the master concept plan of us being able to remove this spoils pit on the Morris Park side, creating flat space out there to build the Morris Park plan as that comes along in the future. When we approached Chimney Rock Village, they had some concerns about our uses for the land, and they had requested that we put a park in. Well, let me back up just a second too. We also had received a PARTIF grant to be able to purchase this property. And if on your page, is on your fold-out page here, it doesn't have a number on it. The orange and green was what we actually submitted to, on the right side of it. That's what we actually submitted to PARTIF and received a land purchase grant off of that. Well, after we met with Chimney Rock and kind of got an idea of what they were needing, what we were needing, we came back and we actually hired a landscape architect and created the picture that's on the left of that same fold-out. We increased parking spaces, we increased primitive campsites, we increased trails, we added picnic tables, we actually increased everything over what we had submitted to PARTIF. It was said to us, how can we make everybody happy? You know, it's give them ice cream. Well, we kind of got our ice cream on this here because we're able to keep the Partif money by doing this project and increasing that. We get to keep the spoils pit, we get to remove the spoils pit, and we could also use dredge matching grant funds for this project also. So, after we got to this, we went back, Chimney Rock Village was okay with what we were looking at with the park and stuff around the spoils pit. We went back to Partif, we had them evaluate this plan, and they had one small stipulation, which we've already included. It's just some verbiage on what would be done with the spoils pit when it came to the end of its useful life. And so Partif is on board with still giving us the money. Our next step after this board makes the adjustments and approves this plan, then our next step will be to finalize with Chimney Rock Village, finalize with Brown Engineering for the spoils pit that needs to be on there, and then we'll be set to go to construction.
Right.
Then we'll sign the contract.
We'll sign a contract with Partif for the money. It's about $220,000, and then we'll be ready for construction planning.
The special Parks and Rec meeting held on November 15th was specifically for reviewing these plans. The board unanimously recommended approval of them, and I support that.
I'm just glad you explained it to me, because I kept pulling out the right and left side, and I said, what in the world am I looking at? That kept blowing my mind. I said, what?
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I think it's great and appreciate your work on it.
Good. Yes, sir. And you might have gotten the ice cream, but you didn't get the fudge.
I'll catch you asleep in a minute. Is there any other questions regarding any of the plan?
Not that point. Dean, I'd just like to say, a great job. So far, we've got a few hurdles to jump over to get us to the finish line, but we did everything we hoped to do, and that's to keep all the money and make everybody happy. So this has been a great recreation project that you've been the overseer of. We're getting results, and you've done a fantastic job.
I think this is going to be a great project to the town.
Thank you.
And put us well on our way for the Morris Park plan.
Yeah, you show how that, the berms from that spoils area will be used to level out and start the process of improving Morris Park.
Right.
Too.
I like leaving that elevated area too.
Yeah.
When we remove this spoils pit over here, it's going to change the entire dynamics of this park. You're not going to see the drains, you're not going to see the humps in the field. I mean, it's going to change it so dramatically. It's badly needed.
And you have a view of the river, which we don't have right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we need a motion to accept this?
I make a motion that we approve the proposed plan for the Boys Camp Road property and the spoils pit.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right.
Thank you, Dean.
Bob, it may be that time.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
All right, we have a motion, second by Commissioner Weber. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good.